At the end of the day, as you can see, just to recap, American Family started out on their original estimate with $10,041.56. We submitted an estimate for $23,879. They pushed us back a little bit. We revised our estimate to $21,550.48. And as you can see, that amount approved. And that, my friends, is what I call winning in this game. Welcome to another episode of What's Wrong with This Insurance Estimate. And I want to start this episode out like I've started all the rest, with a question. And that is, are you just taking the insurance company's word for it? Is that how you're running your business? Are you a contractor who does the project for the total amount that the insurance company says that you should do it for? That's crazy. All insurance estimates, the original estimates written by the adjusters, are short. I say that after having reviewed thousands of insurance estimates over a 20-year period of time. And I've never seen an estimate that didn't have missing items in it. And so I want you to pay attention and listen up to what I have to say. This is episode number 7, and I realize that it's been many months since I've produced an episode, and I've had hundreds of requests throughout the past several months to bring it back. And that's what I'm going to do, starting with this one, and I'm going to keep it going forward with lots of additional episodes packed with firepower. And I'm super fired up about that. So here we go with the next episode, and we're going to deal with an American Family Insurance project. And it's a little bit different than the ones that I've done in the past. The ones I've done in the past are typically like a roofing project, some other exterior trades, maybe some interior. Now this one is a bit different because it's a sewage backup estimate. But the reason why I want to bring this into play is because I really want to help you unlock a key that many of you might be missing, which is the contents. And I'm not talking about content replacement here. I'm talking about the furniture and all the stuff that's in the way when you have to do a job. Now I got to tell you, this is something where I really missed the boat back when I was a general contractor over a 10+ year period of time. Whenever I had a project where I had to do interior work and there were, contents in the way, furniture, other, maybe things that had to be boxed up and moved out of the way, especially if you did a significant amount of work, like if a whole room had to be gutted out and it was someone's bedroom, and so what do you do with all the stuff? So the thing I would usually say is, look, we'll get a pod out here and we'll get them to approve that, or something, to store the contents in, and then you pack everything up and we'll get guys in here to move it for you, okay? But we don't want our people like going through your personal items and doing that. So you pack it up and we'll move it into the storage unit for you. And that's where we really missed the boat. See, because I didn't realize that Xactimate had an entire category that deals with contents when it comes to packing, storing, and handling. Like, I had no clue how much that the insurance company paid out to just simply take that extra step and take care of that for your client and handle those items. Like, in other words, taking those items, putting it into the box, boxing it up, and moving it to where it needs to go. Whether you had to hire a moving company or an actual contents company, or it's your own crew that you're using to do this work. Like, I had no idea how much I was really missing out on. So I want you to take a look at this estimate. It's the original estimate written by adjuster, and there's lots to really learn in this initial estimate. And so let's just look at the breakdown here. We've got the RCV at $10,041.56. They held back $3371.95 in depreciation. There's a $1,000 deductible. And typically, with a water loss or sewage, the deductible is usually a flat fee, versus a percentage of the property amount or the policy limits. It's typically a flat fee, like $250 or $500 or $1,000, maybe even $2,000. That's one of the cool things about dealing with a water loss or a sewage backup. It's not like a crazy percentage of the property amount like when you're dealing with a hailstorm or a hurricane, for example, tornado. So let's move on down here. Okay, and another quick thing here, we've got another further breakdown. You know, they show here that depreciation was withheld for the bedroom, certain items in the bedroom, and certain items in the rec room. So that's how they came up with their total. So they did not hold back depreciation from any of the debris removal, which they shouldn't, and they didn't hold back any for the contents. Now, mind you, the contents here is 412.86, which represents, just scroll down here just a little bit, kind of get started. So the debris going back is 414. That's where is for the dumpster. That's where they came up with that. And then here's the contents category. So they've got here, you know, a job site storage container, 40 feet long, and the pickup and delivery times 2. And so that's how they're coming up with the 412.86 figure right here. Okay, and the debris removal is the dumpster. And so moving on down, you go into the bedroom, and we have replace drywall, replace baseboard, paint the baseboard. Now, what's happened here on this job previously was there was already a mitigation company that came in, like a ServPro or somebody, I don't even know who it was off the top of my head, but there was a mitigation company that had already been there prior to my client's involvement. My client is the contractor, the general contractor that's doing the reconstruction, which is the put back or build back, are terms that are used in the industry. So the mitigation had already been completed. So all of the wet, stuff had been removed. So the wet carpet removed, wet baseboard, wet drywall, and the water itself was removed. And so that was already dealt with in a separate estimate. So you're not going to see any items in this estimate for mitigation. So the only thing here is for the reconstruction. So that's why we're seeing no removal items in this estimate, and we're just seeing replacement. Now, one thing to note is that, honestly, there should be depreciation withheld from the replacement of the drywall and the replacement of the baseboard and the painting of the baseboard, because those items, being replacement items and have material in them, would be the items to depreciate, but they didn't. So and I'm not complaining at all, and wasn't at the time, but if they are holding back depreciation, those are the items that they're supposed to hold them back on. So not any items with labor, right? It's just items that are replacement items with material, like this item right here. So they did hold back depreciation on the ceiling and painting of the walls in the bedroom, and they held it back. They should have held it back here, but didn't. They should have held it back here, but didn't. They should not have held it back here for the removal of the carpet. They didn't. But for the replacement of the carpet, that's where they have applied the depreciation. And for the replacement of the carpet pad, right? So now they should have put it on for the replacement of the closet organizer here, and not put it on for the contents, because that's a labor item, right? Or the removal of the carpet. Now, a couple things to note here. There is still removal of carpet, because the mitigation company only tore out the wet portions of the carpet. So we have to start by removing the remainder of the carpet and then, replacing all of it. So another thing to point out is that this content figure here, the 6889, technically should have also been included in this breakdown for the contents up here, but I noticed as I was going through it that it wasn't. So if we're really going to break it down, I want to break down all aspects of it. But going through bedrooms, you're kind of seeing the same stuff going through. Now, another thing to note is that replacing the carpet pad was per specs from independent pad analysis, and replacing the carpet, same thing. Now, you got to be careful with that, because when you look in Xactimate, if the adjuster just simply chooses that item has not been filled in yet with the price that comes from that independent carpet analysis. And the way that you get those independent carpet analysis, if you're not already familiar, would be by getting an ITEL report, which we're going to see in this episode. I'm going to show you an ITEL report. So if they have a figure that's short, in other words, don't take their word for it. Don't just look at that figure and say, okay, that's already been checked out. That's the amount that we have to work with as far as getting the carpet replaced. No, it's not. Like, you've got to dig into that, dive into it a little bit further, keep them honest and check it out. So if that's not adding up, then you're going to have to get an ITEL report and submit that along with your estimate, which you'll see how we do that. Okay, so moving on down, that's the totals for that bedroom. We have the rec room, same thing, replacing some drywall. I'm going to show you some photos so you're going to be able to visualize this project. Replacing the baseboard, painting baseboard, casing, paint casing, remove carpet pad, contents, and then the next is a stairway, kind of attached to that rec room, which you'll see. Same thing, carpet, pad. I noticed no painting. Okay, so you have the grand total on this is 10,04156. Notice it does include overhead and profit, and interestingly enough, the overhead and profit was also applied to this content section here. So I want you to bookmark that because we're going to come back to that interesting little fact there as well. But let's go on and look at some photos here. So this is the job in question. It's a basement project in Kansas, and you've got a couple of bedrooms, a couple of rooms affected essentially in the basement, and a rec room. And you can see that the mitigation company tore out just sections of the carpet. And many of you I know have probably seen this. You know, you've been called out to do an estimate for someone, and you come out and you can see that, you know, the floors are bare, you know, things have been already cut out, but everything is basically dry. And that's because someone's been there before you to handle these things. So they came in and did what's referred to as a flood cut. You can see here, they removed the bottom portions of the drywall. And they removed the, first the carpet and pad, then the baseboard, and then the bottom portions of the drywall. And then on any exterior walls, you would also have what? Insulation, right? So they've also removed the insulation. So you can see the flood cut kind of goes throughout the basement. One thing to note, you know, as soon as a mitigation company comes in and does this, like they even if they just take off the baseboard, you might have seen me say this in other episodes, if a piece of baseboard, a section of baseboard gets removed from the wall, then now the paint on that wall is damaged. So the wall has to be painted, not just one wall, but all the walls that leads in a continuous run to wherever it stops, like in a section like right here. Like you wouldn't keep going into the next room, you would just stop at this doorway, everything on the inside of this room, right? I will say, recently I was, and you'll see I'm already planning the next episode, episode number 8, you'll see where USAA adjuster actually said, no, we just pay for the one wall that's affected. And of course my response was, okay, write it up and we'll see what you got, right? Because I know that I'm going to go back to the inside later and get them to pay for all the remaining walls in a continuous run, right? And so let's just move on down. And then of course, there's no disputing that the wall has to be painted in this case because it's actually been removed, right? Like sections of the wall has been removed. But I'm just saying, even if they've just taken off the baseboard, you now have to paint the wall. Most of the time adjusters will miss that and they'll say, okay, well, we'll deal with the baseboard and repaint the baseboard. But no, we've got to paint the walls. So you can see going throughout the basement, there's a main room here. And just look at the furniture, right? The stuff that's laying around and stuff's already been boxed up at this point when I was there taking photos. You could see sections of the carpet. Whenever a mitigation company comes in and takes any part of the carpet out, obviously, then they have to replace, the insurance company has to pay to remove the carpet, wherever it leads to, in the same situation like I was talking about the paint, like wherever it leads to and stops. And I will say they'll typically, a lot of times, especially recently, is they'll make you cut it off at the doorways, at bedrooms and things, even if there's not a threshold there. That's one thing to note. That's pretty standard in the industry. Sometimes they will pay for it, but typically they'll stop at the bedrooms unless those bedrooms have been affected as well, like they have been here. But just look here at all these contents. What are we going to do with this? So, going back to the insurance estimate, remember, they just said move out then reset in some of these rooms, right? Just like a typical standard item for contents that are in the way, like if you're painting in a room. So they're just saying, look, like we think the contractor can, for $80-something, take all of these contents and move them into the pod that they did pay for. Or they're saying, we expect that the homeowners will do all this themselves, right? I mean, move out then reset would not cover all those contents. That was one of the first things that really stood out to me, and that's why I think that this episode here will give you a lot of value, because I'm going to show you how to take a simple situation like this and make a whole lot more money for your efforts. Now, I mean, looking at these photos though, and looking at the estimate that we just reviewed, you might be thinking at this point, many of you I know definitely are thinking, wow, that adjuster did a pretty good job. And in many ways he did, right? I mean, the adjuster definitely didn't miss damage, so that was good. Like didn't find new damage on this job, really. I mean, usually that's always something that we do, is we find new damage, but dealt with everything that needed to be dealt with, right? Like all the casing, sealing and prime, 2 coats, like did it right. Like technically they only really have to seal, just the wall, the new wall that you put in, but this one went above and beyond and sealed and primed all of them, so certain things you may be looking at like, oh, they did detach and reset for the closet organizer. Like, oh yeah, this guy did a great job. Like, there's good money in this job, right? And I know many of you are thinking that. Like, when you look at this estimate, this is an easy day at the office, right? Like this, and for me, I got to tell you, definitely an easy day at the office. But for $10,041, I know that a lot of you are looking at this job and you're thinking, oh yeah, that's a pretty good job. Like, I take that job all day long. But now look at what I've done to this job. Now, this estimate was the original estimate that I wrote for the same job. And so, of course, we in both cases with the estimate, the insurance estimate and our estimate, these are real, these are the same jobs, but we've redacted out the sensitive information to protect all parties involved. So the dumpster pretty much kept it the same, right? But here's the biggie: contents, packing, moving, and storing. So let me ask you, for those of you out there, even ones that are using Xactimate and have been using Xactimate, did you know that these items exist in Xactimate? And there are many, many, many more. And to dive into a whole nother level, to get even more advanced, I mean, don't even get me started about contents cleaning. So go look at the CPS category in Xactimate and look at all the items that are there and available to you just for packing, moving, and storing. Now, if it's a kitchen fire, for example, and I've had many of these, where it's just a small fire that was put out quickly, but there was so much smoke in the home that everything now has to be cleaned. Like, not bad enough to where it has to be replaced, but it now has to be cleaned. There are items in Xactimate under the cleaning category for, like, women's fancy blouse, men's sports jacket, lazy boy, mattress, the curtains and drapery. So all of these items would have to be dealt with. There are alarm clock, clean the outside of that alarm clock clean inside and out, flat screen television. And so it's amazing to me the extent that Xactware goes to providing all of these items that can be very, very useful. And so, but just for this scenario here, we're not talking about cleaning, we're just talking about the packing, moving, and storing, right? And so let's just look at it. Inventory, packing, boxing, and moving charge per hour. And then we've got, in parentheses, pack out, or in the footnote here, pack out, 6 technicians for 10 hours each, right? And we call them technicians rather than movers or laborers, like to make them sound a little bit more elite. So we have 6 technicians, right? And that's how we come up with the 60 hours. And so you just look at it, and that's for inventory, packing, boxing, and moving. That's all the items that are necessary. So we're not just, throwing everything into a truck or into a pod. We have to take our time and be diligent and inventory everything that we're doing, photograph everything we're doing, pack it up, make lists for every box, labels, and we're going to use bubble wrap, tape, mattress pads, all kinds of different items to get this job done. Anything we're going to use, that's what we're going to put into this estimate. So, but all of the moving hours, this is for just the pack out portion, right? And so we've got provide box, packing paper and tape. We've got 20 extra large boxes. We have 10 glass pack boxes. We have 15 large boxes, 30 medium-sized boxes, 40 small-sized boxes, 1,000 linear feet of bubble wrap, 40 picture frame boxes. And then we have a moving van for 4 total days. Why is that? Because we're not going to use the pod or the job site storage container that they offered up in their estimate, because that's not going to be big enough to cover all the materials, and all of those materials, all of those items need to be stored in a climate controlled storage unit. And so this project was throughout the summertime. That's one thing, but insurance covers to put that into a climate controlled storage unit. You don't want to put that out into a box out into your driveway. For one thing, it's not, you can for smaller projects, but it's not the most secure solution, right? And it's definitely not good for the items, for your furniture and for fragile items and maybe sensitive documents. So climate controlled storage would be the best solution, and that's what we wrote it up for. So we're doing 1,000 square feet, and that's how it's estimated, is by the square feet. So if you need a 500 square feet unit for 2 months, that's how you'd write it up, 1,000 square feet. If you did do it that way, though, include a footnote describing it's 5,000 or 500 square feet for a total of 2 months. And then we have inventory, packing, boxing, and moving charge per hour, 36 hours for what? The pack back, right? Because after we're done, we have to bring all that stuff out of the storage, load it all back up, and bring it all back over to the unit. So that's for the pack back. And that moving equipment, like the moving van here, includes both trips, both to and from, if you will. So then, on top of that, we have the supervision. Because one of the technicians that are there has to be a supervisor, in my eyes, right? And so at least one supervisor is there to do the evaluation, keep track of everything, to coordinate everybody, and there's 20 hours there. And I think you should include in that cost any time spent on the phone preparing this, booking the unit, the storage unit, the going and get the moving trucks, any of the time spent working on this project at all, supervision wise, I think you should include there as well. Okay, and then a quick note is that all of these items are for during business hours. And the reason why we did during business hours, there's no emergency at this point. Everything is dry, so there's no need to do this like in the middle of the night or on the weekend or, so during business hours, just so you know, is anything Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And so if any of the work spent is outside of those hours, it's considered after business hours. And there are separate line items in Xactimate for the after business hours, right? But in this case, that would be considered probably excessive if you were doing the work after hours, unless there's a reason why, like it was a business and you had to do it after hours, right? And so, but you can see added to this job right off the top, before we even get started going through with the other items that the insurance company actually did include, our version of the contents is $8,533.81. Boom, right? And so like that, there are contents companies out there, and many of you may have had to hire them, or you've worked alongside of those companies, or maybe your client might have hired a contents company, or maybe the insurance company dispatched and commissioned a contents company, a content moving company out to the job, or a pack out company. This is the structure that these folks are working under, right? I mean, these are the line items that are being used, and these are the total amounts that are being thrown around. this is standard in the industry. This is something that the insurance company is used to seeing. So even if you're not used to seeing it and you look at that, you're like, oh my goodness, like, is the insurance company even going to approve that? Like, I don't want them to get mad at me or get my client all upset. No, you have to understand this is standard in the industry, right? I mean, so this is the estimate that we wrote up, that I personally wrote, and then we get into the items on the job, right? And as we said before, the adjuster did a pretty good job, but there were a lot of items that the adjuster missed. So like the doors, the adjuster was missing the doors, and if you're doing doors, you also have to do the door knobs because the door units don't include door knobs. So we have the colonist doors, we have masking and taping that was missed, mask and prep for paint. So like, I see you gave me the casing and I see you gave me the baseboard, right? I see you gave me walls, but there are no ceilings on this job, right? There's nothing wrong with the ceilings. And so, if we're painting the walls and we're not painting the ceiling, then what do we need right there? We need, tape. If there's crown molding, we need tape along the crown molding. We need tape all along the door casing, the window casing. And so that item's included as well. And just so you know, I want to take a second to address this too. Sewage backup, if you've ever come into contact with that, or if you ever do come into contact with that, sewage backup is pretty much the worst that there is, right? Like, sewage backup is considered category 3. And so that's why the footnote here is underneath the interior door unit, from contact with category 3 water damage, sewage backup. That's like the black water that comes out of the drains and starts coming out of the sinks and toilets. Anything that touches, essentially, has to be replaced. I'm not saying you have to replace all the framing in all circumstances. Like the framing can be cleaned and mitigated, but anything it touches, that has to be replaced. So there's really no question about the carpet and the pad. Normally, if the carpet gets wet with just normal, category 1 water, then the mitigation company really, if they're doing a good job and doing what they're supposed to be doing, their goal is to salvage the carpet and to salvage the drywall and the baseboard, right? And to try to save it. And why is that? Because, if you're looking at this rec room, for example, that is a big, huge deal. If, like this room here and this room, if that carpet can be saved, then you're saving the insurance company several $1,000s. And that's a lot of space and carpet, and it goes on up the stairs. So if it can be saved, you're saving them a whole bunch of money. So a good mitigation company is supposed to try to save it. You can get cynical here. You can get, a little bit like, they're my enemy and they get over on me all the time. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to cut it out to make sure they have to pay for it, right? And that's not being a good professional, honestly. I understand you want to do that, but you only cut it out if it has to be cut out. But in this case, there's just no question. It's category 3 water damage. And so, the mitigation company did good by tearing everything. I actually probably would have went ahead and removed the rest of it, because you can see the stains on the concrete here. I think it's probably kind of gone underneath. And if I remember correctly, it was tracked all up the stairs and all out. And so people are walking on it and walking all through the house. So you really need to contain the area if this ever happens. So anyway, getting back to the estimate, anything it came in contact with has to go. So that's a little bit of the differences. Plastic, prep work, right? Some of the differences there. And then we have the ITEL. So I mentioned that before. So that's the other difference, is the pricing of the ITEL. So we've got carpet pad. See attached ITEL report at the end of this estimate in the images section. The Xactimate price for labor only is 9 cents per square foot. The ITEL price for materials is 47 cents per square foot. So we're explaining how we got to 56 cents per square foot. And now the carpet, same kind of breakdown. So we're at 406, and see attached. The Xactimate price for labor only is 68 cents. The ITEL price for materials is 338. That's how we got to the 406. So you have to do a little bit of manipulation in your Xactimate. It'll allow you to change the pricing in it, and that's how you do it. And so if you go back and look at their pricing, their pricing was for the carpet pad, 57 cents, replace carpet, 351. So it's somewhat close. Let's see again, 406, 56. So it's sort of close, but definitely a little bit different. And so we have an ITEL report to back that up, which I'll show you here in a second. But we have final cleaning. That was not added. That's typically added for any interior work on any job. So there's an item for final cleaning construction residential, and there's also an item for final cleaning construction commercial. In this case, being that it's residential, that item was added, and that should have been added as to begin with. So then we have the rec room, same kind of items here. Doors, doorknobs, and they missed some other things here. The cold air return covers, the speakers that were on the wall, they missed those. More masking and covering and taping. They were off a little bit on their measurements. The baseboard, let's see if did they have the oversized baseboard? Let me go back and check real quick. On their baseboard, nope, they had replaced baseboard 3 1/4 inch, and they had paint baseboard. They're saying, the standard's like 2 1/4, but they're saying that the baseboard's oversized, but they're not saying that the painting is oversized. So that was a bit different there. So a couple differences. Same thing on the ITEL, final cleaning, and then the stairway, similar. But see where they missed is, again, the walls are being affected. Like, we're doing all the walls, so why didn't they cover for the painting of the walls? And also the painting of the skirt, like the items, the wood that's around the stairs. Show you what I'm talking about. On the stairs. So see, the stairway just goes right on up. So like we're doing baseboard, this is kind of the baseboard, that's the skirt. We've got to do that also. But everything just goes right on up. The walls are connected, so why didn't they do that? Don't know. But it does stop at the top of the stairway. There is a break there. Otherwise, we just keep right on going. And I've seen that many, many times. Call me crazy if you want, but those are the standards in the industry. So like moving on down, the labor minimums that are automatically applied, we just left those in place. Overhead and profit applied to everything, and you can see we came up with a total of $23,879 even. Now I want to show you the ITEL report, and just before I get into the ITEL, kind of comical as far as our breakdown. It's a little bit different than their breakdown. Like their contents was like a mere $400 and some odd. In our case, it's $7,021. So much different there. And let's move on down to the ITEL report. And so if you haven't seen an ITEL report, that's what it looks like. There's a sample of the carpet taken and submitted to ITEL. And this is what they came back with. So you can see they list out the insurance company information, the address, the claim information, the name of the contractor, etc. And they come back and they identify what kind of carpet that is, basically, and where you can get it and how much it costs. And so that's how we came up with the pricing, and that was submitted as an image to show the insurance company what we're basing that on. And why are we using ITEL? Because that's the industry standard. Again, back to that. Like, one of the things that you'll see me do is that I'm not trying to invent my own rules. Like, I'm going to use the insurance company rules that they already follow, and I'm going to embrace those rules, and I'm going to use those rules against them to win. So like, I'm going to use Xactimate because that's what they use. I'm not going to use some other format. I'm going to use Xactimate, but my Xactimate estimates are going to be much higher than theirs are because they're actually written correctly, right? And so I'm going to do it correctly. I'm going to use most of the time Eagle View because most of the time that's what they use. Like if I'm getting exterior measurements and aerial measurements of siding and roofing, and I'm going to use ITEL when it comes to identifying roofing products and siding products and carpet products, because again, that's what they use. So I'm going to try to embrace their rules to use their rules against them. I'm going to use their rules when it comes to content moving and contents cleaning, as you can see in this estimate, right? And I'm going to use those rules against them. And their version is $400, but their standard, written by Xactimate, when done properly, as you can see, is $8,000. So again, I'm going to use their rules against them. Now, moving on down, all the images that you've already seen are included in the actual estimate. So they can see them very clearly, right? Like every line item in that estimate is backed up by these photos. And so anybody looking at this estimate, and I'm assuming that an inside desk adjuster is going to look at this estimate, and that's what ended up being the case, can see exactly why I've included those items in the estimate. Why are the contents so significant? You can see, because in these photos, you see all the contents that need to be packed up and moved out of the way. And so all the photos that we already went through are all included in this estimate. Okay, so we took this estimate and submitted it to the general mailbox at American Family. And this is the actual email that was sent to American Family with one attachment. And that one attachment, as you can kind of see down here, is that same PDF Xactimate estimate that we just looked at. And so here's what it says. Now up here at the top, which you can't see, we redacted it out, is all of the claim information. If you don't know, in the subject line, just the claim number by itself with no dashes. And I'll typically list out the claim number, the property owner name and full address, and then I'll come in with to whom it may concern. We have been hired as the general contractor to perform all repairs that are prescribed by the above referenced claim. It is our goal to follow all of your prescriptions to complete the repairs. Attached is our estimate for all repairs that will be necessary to fulfill the prescription. The estimate is written with Xactimate with the most current price list. We have also attached to the estimate extensive documentation, which includes photographs and a copy of a flooring ITEL report. We understand that our totals are much higher than where your estimate is at currently. However, we just want to assure you that we are extremely reasonable and willing to work with you to get on the same page. Please review the attached estimate and get back to us with any questions and/or concerns. We are willing to meet you again at the property if necessary and to discuss via telephone and/or email about any of the items listed in the estimate. At this time, we have scheduled the project and we are moving forward with the repairs. We want to include you in the process to give you a chance to review our estimate beforehand. And for that reason, your timely response would be most appreciated. Also, because we have already been hired as the general contractor, please also release the recoverable depreciation. We certainly thank you for your time and effort on this claim for our mutual client. We look forward to hearing from you respectfully, etc., etc. Now, a couple things to point out. I know a couple things may have jumped out at you there. First, in this sentence here, we understand that our totals are much higher than where yours are at currently. But we just want to assure you that we're reasonable. Like, we're not stuck on that price. We want to be diplomatic. We're going to work with you here. Like, we're not going to try to ram it down your throat. Like, we're going to work with you to get on the same page. I think that's crucial that you list that in this email. And the first time you get pushback from an adjuster that's a little bit aggressive with you, like, I just got your estimates twice the amount. What are you trying to do here? Because they really didn't even read it or look into it at all. And they just looked right at the differences of the amounts. Then I'll refer back to that email immediately. Like, I'll just say, oh no, I get it. But I just wanted to assure you, it's like I said in the email, we get it. We know that it's way higher, but just want to let you know, like, we're willing to work with you to work it out. And I might say there, I might continue from there with something like, please let me know what in the estimate, maybe we made some mistakes, right? Like what in the estimate is incorrect or is, doesn't belong or is crazy or it's excessive or whatever, like, let's go through it. Tell me which items are jumping out at you, and let's try to solve those together. Because if we made some mistakes, or if we have something that's excessive, we're human. We're willing to work it out. And I think usually when you do that, you break the tension a little bit and kind of back them down from their aggression and help them to understand that we're all on the same team. We're trying to solve these problems for the policyholder. You might even bring up that exact line, but if you can get them to the point to where they're actually looking at the estimate that you sent them, because I find a lot of times they don't even look at it. They don't even respect the work that you put in by looking at what you've provided to them. And I think if you go through the correct steps, it should be that no one has spent more time with this project right here than you have, right? And no one is going to have more details on this project than you. So you're the best expert on this job, right? And for anybody to try to come up and get into a debate with you over these items, great, but let's just go through them one by one. If you can get the adjuster to go through the items one by one, and now we can really see that, is it really that inaccurate, Mr. or Miss Adjuster? I mean, let's look at it. I mean, don't you agree that that item belongs? And so that's why I put that sentence here in the email, the submission email that goes out to the insurance companies. And then also, if you have questions or concerns, we're willing to meet you out there. I also find that most of the time, when you shoot them an estimate that's so much different, in this case, more than twice the amount, like almost 2.5 times the amount, usually that's automatically going to trigger a reinspection. Like, they're going to send a whole other adjuster out there, even though they don't need to, right? They definitely do not need to do that. I mean, you can tell from this estimate, and that's my goal, by the way. My goal is to definitely set the stage, right? Set the scene for the adjuster who's never been there. Like the inside, I'm expecting that there's going to be an inside adjuster reviewing this at some point, and you have to visualize what that's like. Like, they're sitting there at a desk, they're looking at their computer, and they're looking at your information and all the documentation that you provided. But one of the first things they're going to do is they're going to go pull up everything that the original adjuster provided. And they're required to provide photos and measurements, right? And so they're going to look at all of probably, let's face it, it's going to be weaker photos and weaker documentation that the original adjuster provided. And they should be able to compare that documentation side by side and that estimate side by side with your estimate and the documentation that you've provided and all of your photos. And if they're doing their job, if they actually read what's been sent to them, and if they actually go through those steps and they're not lazy and they actually do the work, they should never have to send another adjuster out there. Because as you can see from the estimate we've already reviewed, the scene has been set perfectly. There's no other documentation they need on this. So to send another adjuster, which I think on average, probably, with the cost of independent adjusting firms and staff adjusters, salaries and things like that, and overtime and all these things, gas money and whatever, I believe that it's probably about an average of around $750 every time an insurance company has to send out an adjuster to a property. And they go out there and do their Xactimate and all of the time spent on that and all their photos and all the reports they have to fill out and payments issued and mail sent out. That's about $750, right? And so there's no need to do that. And so, if you can kind of do the adjuster's job for them, essentially, like when it comes to the documentation, I'm not talking about policy and coverage, but when it comes to the actual estimate and the scope of work and the line items and the photos and measurements and documentation like the ITEL report, if you can do that, there's no need for them to ever send out an adjuster. Hopefully I've made my point. Now, another crucial sentence that's significant that I always like to include in here, at this time, we have scheduled the project and we're moving forward with repairs, right? There's no reason for us to not move forward with repairs. right? Because they've already approved the main scope here. They've already acknowledged the carpet needs replaced, drywall needs replaced. Like, there's no disputing the main core items at issue here, right? The only thing that's really standing in our way is the contents, because that's got to come first. And so we're scheduling the project and we're moving forward with repairs. Now, I didn't tell them that we've already hired the movers and we're already, incurring those expenses. I didn't tell them that, but I didn't tell them that we're not either, did I? Like, so they may be led to assume and to believe from the wording of this email, oh man, like they're already going to pull the trigger on that $8,000 some odd content bill. We need to hurry up and contact them and put a stop to that, or put a check on this process, right? And so, and by the way, they're going to put a check on it, all right, just not the kind of check that they think. But anyway, we want to include you in the process to give you a chance to review our estimate beforehand, which, by the way, you kind of have to do, right? But for that reason, your timely response would be most appreciated. So not to jump around too much, but I feel obligated to. In the beginning here of this estimate, and you'll see this general lingo, language that you may not pay too much attention to, but they kind of lay it out like, here it is. Please present this estimate to a contractor or repair facility of your choice before you authorize the start of your repairs. I think there's a lot to be learned from that one sentence in our industry, and I think many myths could be busted wide open in their mouths just by reading that sentence that was provided to you by an insurance company, mind you, right? Like, so in other words, a lot of times like homeowners and property owners will be real like private and real funny about, like, they don't want to share with you the estimate that was written by the insurance company. Well, that's fine. Like, you can see some of my other videos. I have ways to get, sort of get around that. I'm not going to require them to show that to me immediately, but they're going to give it to me on their own. And I have ways of doing that, to where they actually want to give it to me, right? But that's for another video. But before you start the work, you're not going to start that job. Please don't start that job unless you've seen, the actual breakdown with your own eyes and the complete breakdown. Don't let the insured give you certain pages of their choice of the report. You need to see the whole report, okay? It's funny how we agree to do $10, $20, $200,000 projects for clients, but yet we don't even do a credit check on them. In many cases, you don't even check their ID, right? Like you don't require them to put up collateral, but you can't go down to a Best Buy and get a $1,500 same as cash credit card, without, putting up your entire background. Like, they go through and do credit checks and everything else. I mean, so it's really kind of ridiculous, the amount of, the amount of courtesy we extend to insureds. Like, don't extend that much courtesy. Don't do the job without requiring them to give you a copy of that. I mean, and so that's not abnormal. If you hear other agencies like Attorneys General or Better Business Bureau or things like that saying don't share that paperwork, that's not accurate advice to be giving to someone. Coming from their own insurance company here, present this estimate to they want you to do that so you can identify any problems that might exist. Another thing you're going to see in my next episode, or after a hurricane, a roofing company came out and locked this client into like a $28,000 roofing project where the insurance company was ever only going to pay $20,000 for that. I mean, that could have been settled beforehand. That catastrophe could have been settled if that estimate had been, at least if they would have given the insurance company the opportunity to at least review it and to give their rebuttal, right? And that's what that sentence was for in my submission email. But then again, another thing to be learned here is to a contractor of your choice, okay? Make sure that you educate your clients on the fact that they're allowed to hire the contractor of their choice. These days, these insurance companies are sending these vendors and preferred vendors and preferred contractors that are on their list, so to speak, out to these jobs, and they're kind of trying to push them down their throat, and they sort of are led to believe that, you know, that's their best route, or that they almost kind of have to do that. But I've also seen where these programs have left big giant messes, you know, for these homeowners and commercial business owners. So, you know, go the extra mile to educate your client on the process of an insurance restoration project, okay? And so you can get some of this information directly from the insurance company's mouth. So you can say, you know, don't take my word for it, but contact your agent. You know, that's a good thing to say. Like, if you don't believe me, you know, one way to settle this is contact your agent. Like, they have no reason to lie to you, right? Like, you might not get the answer you're looking for from the adjuster. You may feel that way, but contact your agent or contact the adjuster supervisor, right? Don't just take my word for it, okay? So now back to the email submission. Closing that out, you know, we're putting them on notice. We're starting the process, but we're also giving the opportunity. So I mean, if you had to move forward with the repairs and there were just minor differences like plastic and things like that, and you billed them for it, you know, if you sent them an Xactimate invoice at the end because it never responded to your initial Xactimate estimate, you know, and they say, well, hey, we never had the chance. Well, hey, no, actually, it's on the record. Like, we sent you an email. We said we were moving forward. We gave you our estimate, and we said we were giving you the chance to review it. I mean, honestly, our contract is with the homeowner, not with you, you know, and I mean, it's kind of, you know, private information, you know, if you really think of it. And so our decision to include you was really just a decision extended as a courtesy because we know that you're paying the bill. But other than that, you know, our contract's with the property owner directly, but we did include you. We were proactive, and we put you on notice. Everything's on the record, right? And then so one more sentence here that I want to close this thing out that I want to address and provide some commentary on is packed with firepower. Also, because we've already been hired as a general contractor, please also release the recoverable depreciation. Now, at this point, you may attach another attachment, you know, along with your estimate, which is your signed agreement with no totals, right? Like a signed agreement that just says that essentially this: we agree to hire ABC Contractors, or the name of your company, as our general contractor to perform all repairs that are prescribed by insurance claim such and such, and then the name of the insurance company, for the total amount of the replacement cost value approved by the insurance company, with nothing else. Like, that is the total extent of the agreement signed by your client, signed by you, and sent to the insurance company that will prove to the insurance company that, number one, you've already been hired. Do not send any vendors to my clients, okay? Because they've already hired and selected and secured their choice for a general contractor. Now, another thing you may have heard me cover in other videos, and I cover in my training course, is that the recoverable depreciation technically should be released at this point when the contractor has been hired. Now, one of the things you'll see with American Family, you'll see it with, so in this case, right, it's American Family, you'll see it with Safeco, you'll see it with State Farm, Liberty Mutual, USAA, MetLife, Chubb, and several other insurance companies, Allstate, and I would say 95% of the time with all these insurance companies I've named, if you present them with a copy of your signed contract and ask them to go ahead and release the recoverable depreciation, even if it's before the build, they will release the recoverable depreciation at that time, which can be very helpful, right? I mean, in this case, I mean, the job's already way short if you consider that their total's $10,000 some odd dollars, and they've held back $3,700, like in addition to the $1,000 deductible. Now, what if there's a mortgage company that's also going to say, oh, we're going to split this up and we're going to give you a third. Like, that's ludicrous. That's ridiculous. And so I always have a philosophy that is, you should always take the cash that's available off the table immediately, right? Like prod them to write their own estimate, okay, and then have them make payment. Like, that's undisputed, right? That can go towards the project, and we can get started and at least start working on the items that they have approved. Get the money flowing. Cash flow is king in construction, and I very much get that reality. And so I think whenever and wherever possible, get them to release the recoverable depreciation immediately, okay? So we certainly thank you for all your time and effort on this claim for our mutual client, and we look forward to hearing from you. Respectfully, such and such. So this estimate, submit this to the insurance company, okay? In this instance, that's what happened, and we have some other correspondence, but essentially what happened was the insurance inside adjuster contacted us directly by telephone. And the main problem that this adjuster had, and didn't have problems with anything else, but the only problem the adjuster had with the estimate was, as you might guess, parts of the contents, but it wasn't the entire estimate itself. The only thing the adjuster was asking for was to remove the O&P, okay? Now you could make a case that why should we have to do that, especially since, going back to what I said previously, they've already included O&P for the contents, okay? So the adjuster is saying, my supervisor, this and that, well, they don't want to pay O&P on contents. Yeah, but you already did, didn't you? I mean, for this job, didn't you? I mean, so like if you really wanted to push it, you could, but let's see what they have to say. Like, is that the only thing they want us to remove? They want us to remove O&P on the contents, just there? I can remember this particular job. My client, the contractor, when they initially saw my estimate, they're like, oh, that's crazy. There's no way they're going to approve that. But if they did, that'd be amazing. I mean, even if they can get us a few grand for the contents, that would be awesome. That would be ideal, right? So I knew what I had to deal with. I kind of knew what I was dealing with. I knew it was going to be a win if I just simply took off that, right? And then they were asking for one more thing, which was the supervision hours in addition. So, you should be able to get one or the other, right? But in this case, you got to think, if you're going to give me that, okay, if we take off this essentially $1,100 a year, right? And we take off the O&P, that would make it look like our revised estimate, which is right here. Okay, so this is the difference. So you have 6205.29 for contents versus 8533. And you can see what the difference, if you look at it long enough, you can see. Watch the O&P column. All the O&P was removed, right? And then the last item, 20 hours, removed. Okay, so that was the adjuster's only request. And so we went ahead and accommodated and wrote them back with the revised estimate. Pleasure speaking with you today. I appreciate your time and effort to help our mutual client. As per our telephone conversation today, I was able to get approval for the attached revised estimate. If you agree, please confirm. Now, that's one thing I like to say is like, hey, it's not on me. I was able to get approval because technically I need approval from my client who is the contractor, right? So I always like to put it off on my supervisor because isn't that what they always do to you? So that's what I did here on the phone. Like, I don't know if I can do that, but if I can, I'll kind of get back with you, right? And, thanks again if I could be of further assistance. But here's the key too. One of the other things I did in that call that you should do, if I were to say, yeah, I agree to that, that's fair enough, I'll do that, right? And I agree to take off that sounds good. Because that does sound like a good deal, and just, that would look like this. So instead of the 23,000, we would get it to 21,550, right? So, but remember, they're at 10,000. So we're going to get them at more than twice the amount by complying with that guy's request. But what if I send that over to him and then he comes back and says, Okay, great. Thank you for doing that. And there's just one other thing that I want to ask you about, ask you to revise, because that is a common trick that they like to do a lot. And so watch for that. So one of the things that I asked him was, okay, I'm going to see if I can get approval for this. And I also put it off on the supervisor in case that he does go back with that trick. But if I'm able to get approval for this, is there anything else that you're asking me to change? Because I don't want to have to come back and look stupid to my supervisor later, right? So is there anything else? And so he assured me that there was nothing else, and that's all that he was wanting to change. And so wrote up the second estimate, just like I showed you here, sent that one through, and the second email looks like this. He writes back, the revised estimate sent in on 10/23 is approved. Please proceed with the job. I will send a revised scope when I update my estimate. He'd never updated his estimate. He sent a breakdown of like a bid item, all items approved as per estimate, blah, blah, blah. So if I had that to show you, I would, but I figured that'd be good enough, the email from the insurance company. But the thing to point out here is that they never did need to send out an adjuster re-inspect. And that's exactly the right way to handle this. For that adjuster was the exact right way. Like, he got to fight back a little bit and go back and say that he got something, like he bargained for something, got us to remove the O&P from the contents and the supervision. I mean, I bet you there was nobody that ever asked him to do that. That's just probably something on his own that he was just trying to say, hey, I didn't just rubber stamp this estimate. I got them to make some concessions and to bring it down. But at the end of the day, as you can see, just to recap, American Family started out on their original estimate with $10,041.56. We submitted an estimate for $23,879. They pushed us back a little bit. We revised our estimate to $21,550.48. And as you can see, that amount approved. And that, my friends, is what I call winning in this game. So again, if you're just taking the insurance company's word for it, you're dead wrong. Stop doing that. Now you know, and you have no excuses. Keep winning, keep grinding, and we'll see you on the next episode of What's Wrong with This Insurance Estimate.